I feel so privileged to be here tonight to support Hannah in the launch of her beautiful book, because she's a truly beautiful soul, and there need be no words because you can feel it in the energy. I'm sure you all know what I mean, and I'm very happy to be connected with you, friends, and thank you. And the book is absolutely beautiful. I love the way it looks, I love the way it feels, and the words speak for themselves, so thank you. And thank all the unseen beings as well that have come through that creation. I'm just going to invite you to take a couple of breaths and just really arrive in the seat that's supporting you, and just close your eyes for a moment and just really bring yourself present. So just let go of wherever you've been today and bring yourself present into this beautiful space. Just be really generous with a breath or two. I'm just going to invite a little spirit song in, and while I do that, I'm going to invite you to hold in your heart the seed of this beautiful book and the messages, and see them travelling out to all the places that they need to go, from close to far away, and hold that wish for this book to fly with the wings of integrity that it has, to open hearts, connect people, and inspire and awaken, as I'm sure it will. But first, just feel into the connection with yourself, and please welcome yourselves here, because we so often forget that little bit. And when we're here, everyone else can benefit from our connection. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, iune, amakwana chicho kwa, we are, we are, we yo, we are, we are, we yo, oh makucha mama kwe, tamakuku makwe anahe. Oh, Marshe wa te kwane. And the girl began to welcome the men as they approached her home once more. Only this time, she didn't take them inside. Instead, she taught them a different kind of beauty. The beauty of the light within her, her own light, her sacred wellspring of well-being. And she talked for many long hours with the men. She told them of the way of knowing peace. And she told them of the story of the moon, of the way she'd heard Great Spirit calling. And she inspired many men to seek out the voice of Great Spirit. And as she inspired many women to walk into the desert and seek their inner knowing, their inner beauty. And in time, her reputation grew. Mothers would send their daughters to learn from her. And men would come from far and wide for the healing conversation and presence of being. And in time, she became known as the peacemaker, for she brought peace to so many. The tide is turning, escape hatches are being revealed, a land of plenty is waiting, a leap of faith beckoning, a new story being written. A medicine that will heal, accepted. A peace riding the wind as yet unimaginable. Are you coming with us? Or are you already up ahead? We will all rest together on arrival and breathe new life back into every strand of mycelium, every cell and every bone, every artery, every organ, every wish and every dream, until our chemistry shines by our example.
This song is called Courage.
I chose to hold this path alone. find a song that runs through my bones. I left in the dead of night. Not a sound, just racing thoughts in my mind. But I choose the path of love to guide me through the darkness. Yes, I choose the path of love to guide me through the darkness. I choose to see, I choose to be, I choose love, I choose to feel, I choose to hear, I choose love. Have courage to walk with your breath. Have courage to choose your own medicine. Have courage to love all that you are. Have courage, have courage. As I walk this path, Lord, I remember I belong to everything, and I know in my being I'm already free. And I choose the path of love to guide me through the darkness. Yes, I choose the path of love to guide me through the darkness. I choose to feel, I choose to see, I choose love, I choose to feel, I choose to heal, I choose love. Have courage
Pinyos and the seeds. Every thought, feeling, and action has the potential to create entire forests of existence. In Ecuador, from the indigenous peoples of South America, there is a legend and a story that illustrates the power of the seeds we plant and the choices we make. This legend is part of the Shuar oral tradition, who are themselves part of the larger Quechua family of nations. Because this story illustrates such a powerful concept, and it has played such an important part in my life, I share it with you here. The Shuars say that for millions and millions of years, the people lived peacefully. They lived in family clans, led by the mothers and grandmothers, moving gently on the land. The earth was wild and the people were part of it. Then one day, something changed. One of the people of the tribe, his name was Pinyos, he harmed another. He committed the first harm. And then he watched as the one who he had harmed another. And the one who had been harmed, they harmed yet another. As the harm began to spread through his family clan, Pinyos began to feel regret. Then one day, one of the adults who had been harmed, they harmed a child. And the child who had been harmed, well, they went and harmed another. And as the harm began to move child to child, destroying the family, Pinyos began to not only regret, but deep remorse moved through him. What have I done? He thought to himself. And he went into the jungle. Pinyos went into the jungle and he walked. And he walked. And he walked and he walked and he walked and he walked and he walked. He followed the river. He took no food, no water with him. Just followed the river and he sought out his soul. And some say he walked for 3 days, some for 3 weeks, and others say it was 3 months. Finally, after a long, long journey, Pinyos came to the place where 2 rivers meet. And there, where the 2 rivers meet, was a lagoon. The water was an exquisite turquoise blue. Tall reeds and birds of paradise whispered and ruffled at the edges of the water. And at the back was an enormous waterfall cascading down. In the middle of the lagoon was a being of light, 15 feet tall, radiating brilliance. And the being of light smiled at Pinyos. He called him near. Pinyos, trembling, stepped into the lagoon. He stood there, his soul naked in the being's presence, and the being of light handed him a magical vine. The being told Pinyos how to prepare the vine, how to cultivate it, and how to use it. He cleansed and he blessed Pinyos, and he breathed the essence of love into his spirit. And Pinyos was overcome with gratitude. Pinyos knelt at the edge of the lagoon, weeping like a baby. He wept with joy and he wept with relief and he wept with sorrow to cleanse his anger and his shame. And when he was done weeping, he rose to his feet. Pinyos stood tall and he rose to his feet. He bathed in the waterfall and he walked. He turned back along the river and he walked. And he walked and he walked and he walked and he walked. He followed the river and he walked. He took no food, no water with him, just following the river. But this time, he had a little more purpose, a little more hope. And as Pinyos walked, all the animals of the jungle, the birds and the snakes and the mammals, they all came to the path. And they taught him their songs. Chirp, chirp, cooly 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 cooly. Then one morning, as Pinyos crested a mountain ridge, he saw his family village in the distance below. He picked up his pace, clambering down the steps as fast as he could go. And when he reached the village, straight away he began to prepare the magical vine. He planted some to cultivate. He gathered some leaves and bound them together. He stirred the cooking pot, and he called the children to him. Pinyos gave the children the magical preparation. And he sat them down, and with the bundle of leaves, he began to sing over them the songs of the birds, the animals, the forest. One by one, he removed the seeds of harm. And the Shuars say that we will just keep doing this until all the seeds of harm are gone.
This next one is a piece called Joy, and funny enough was influenced by Joy. It's about the love of springtime and the renewal and that amazing feeling that you feel when you open your heart let yourself be. It's about embracing the elements as well, all of them. So, hope you like it.
So I received the impulse to write. I started writing, and then the book grew, and every step of the way, everything that was needed came. I was offered a week-long writer's retreat, and so the first draft actually got into being, and then I was given many tips on how to write and how to structure my time, and this allowed the book to flow. And then I was offered another writer's retreat in the middle of the countryside. These spaces are gorgeous. And then a friend called from out of the blue and said, "Oh, do you remember our other friend as a publisher?" Oh yeah, so I called him, and he just decided, bless him, he's an older Sufi man. And he owns a publishing house and has been publishing for 40 years. So he spent a lot of time with me going through the process and how to navigate it. And because he shares my spiritual path, we were able to really connect on that level. And he reminded me every moment I needed reminding that I'm in service to a much bigger project, and that's actually what every good book actually is. It's a step into the river of something the divine wants to move through you. And as long as you stay surrendered, everything that's needed at every moment will continue to come. And the book has this journey of its own. So I am in complete surrender to this project. The book is not perfect. I have learned, though, over the years through producing dance and other things, that releasing it into the world just before it's perfect is usually a good idea. And when we try to perfect, we can polish off maybe some of the rough edges, but a lot of the heart as well. So. I could talk a lot, but I would love to speak to you directly from where your hearts are coming from. What would you like me to speak to?
You said earlier this evening to me that this book has changed your life. And what way has it changed your life?
Okay, this book, thank you, Paul. Paul has asked, in what way has the book changed my life? Because I mentioned to him that it had. This book, like any big project, made me really look at who I am and where the beliefs are situated in my being and where some scrubbing was needed and some real investigation into sort of it's not an inner dialogue, it's a dialogue with the world around me. You know, we get really caught in the West with like our own inner self and our self-importance, but actually this is a dialogue with the world around us, with what's happening, and I had to really come to that in a place of surrender and authenticity. And then came the moment when my Sufi teacher, my Sufi master, read a draft of the book, and he said, Hana, my job is to make sure that you're sincere, and you are. So I have just one thing to say to you, and I'll tell you what he shared. There was a woman, and she had this son who was just eating all of the honey. And she went to the prophet in the early days, when there wasn't much structure yet. And she said to him, Prophet Muhammad, please, can you ask my son to stop eating so much honey? And he says, yes, I can. Come back in 40 days. And she says, okay. So she goes home, 40 days, great, he's going to tell him, the rest of us will get to eat some honey. And 40 days goes by, and she brings her son back, and Muhammad welcomes them, and he says to the boy, it would be really good for yourself and everyone around you if you could eat a little bit less honey. Do you think you could do that? Do you think you could save some and share it? And the boy says, yes, of course, I can do that just for you. And Mom says, very good, very good. And the mother says, is that all? We waited 40 days and that's all you're going to say? and Muhammad says, well, yes, you see, I also like honey. And I eat a little bit too much. So in order to speak truthfully to your son, I have withheld from honey for the past 40 days. So I've brought myself into conversation with critical thinkers on climate change, sacred activism, healthcare, and the world as we see it. And I've put that into conversation with prophecy. I tell the stories of emergence through the Hopi and Navajo paths, which is quite radical compared to what we're taught in school and how the process of human life began. And so as I put myself into conversation with all of these things, then I had to get to the point where I can say truthfully, I can say this truthfully to whoever reads the book. I am living it. So I am radically different, and I will be free. Thank you for that question, Paul.
Thank you.
Vicki.
So first I wanted to say thank you again. I'm definitely going to be sharing some of this with more detail as well. I think it's going to grow. But something that sparked, you just said that you'd been in conversation with radical or sacred activists. Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so in choosing what voices to bring through, because I have an academic background and I wrote a PhD, and I made a choice to write this book in a really accessible language style, so I don't follow some grammatical rules. I I've chosen to keep it so that when you read it, it's like I'm talking. And then in choosing which voices to bring through, it's just like how you frame the camera when you're making a film. Not everything is shown. And if I were doing a PhD, you'd get to see all the other opinions. It's not a PhD, it's a book for people to actually read. So it's these activists who really wanted to come through and wanted to be a part of this conversation. So, and that's a stance that I'm really happy to make. So Vandana Shiva comes through. She's a woman from India who does a lot of political activism, but also a great deal of support for women and for farmers. And she advises the legislative process in India about laws around its farming. And if you listen to her videos and stuff, you know, down with Monsanto and GMO this, and she's really feisty. But the heart of her message and her work is sacred activism. She's actually empowering farmers and women. And she has a lot of important things to bring to the conversation. I also bring in the work of Noam Chomsky, Charles Eisenstein, Lisa Hoskins. These are all people who talk on climate and on human rights. And again, you know, they make a stance, and some people will vilify them, and some people will love them. And I'm hoping that by bringing these thinkers into conversation with spiritual teachings, we can all get past vilifying or agreeing these polarities that happen. And we can actually just take that sacred activism, put the sacred back in it, actually, by broadening our perspective. Does anybody else have a question or a comment or something they'd like me to speak to?
I have another question.
Yeah.
What is your vision for this book?
Oh, great. Thank you, Paul. That's a very good one. Since Jenix has so blessedly asked you to carry it in your hearts, this feels like a teepee and a child being born. You know, when the clan all comes around and they bless. This is what it feels like. So the vision for this book, from a place of complete surrender, is to I actually really feel for it to reach those hearts that are just on the verge of cracking open, and they just need to hear something a little bit different than what they're hearing in the everyday. And by coming into contact with these stories and these words in a written form, a published form like this, it's going to give them the permission to feel what they feel and to see what they see. And I say in the book, and I'll just keep saying it, you know, people don't have to agree with any of my standpoints. What I'd like for them to come to the place is where they feel what they know in their heart and they can stand in that. So that's my vision. It's really tricky. You know, we've got so many polarities steeped into the Western mindset and divisions. We've gotten really used to specialization and division. And that came with the Industrial Revolution, actually, specialization and division of labor, but we did it to our minds as well. And so we have, I'm in the New Age camp, I'm in the radical Christian camp, I'm in the conservative Sufi camp. Oh, I'm over here, I'm in the agnostic camp, because I can't agree with any of those. So let's come out of the camps. Let's make that fire in the middle where we can be humble. Yeah, that's the second part of the vision.
So your book is a fire that people can sit around.
Oh. And let's not actually set it on fire. I guess you could say that it's a seed for a fire. It's a seed for a fire. The white pine tree is an important symbol in the peacemaker stories. As I mentioned, there's 4 peacemaker stories that I share, but there are of course many more because oral tradition is like that. And the white pine tree is the first sacred fire that was made. It was made under a white pine tree. And the elders of the 5 nations that became the Iroquois Confederacy came together at a time of incredible basically debauchery and warfare. And they actually, the elders took their own weapons as a symbol, and they dug a huge hole and they buried them, and they planted this white pine tree on top. And then they built the sacred fire, the peacemaker's fire, or children's fire. And what's unique about the white pine tree is that its seeds only spread when it's got fire near it. So yeah, there's something about that. The book by the fire and the white pine.
And the book's made out of white pine, that's what the pages are.
Yeah.
And just feeling so much excitement for this incredible time where we're seeing yourself and so many incredible women rise into their confidence and their self-belief to stand as they are, who they are, to bring their gifts.
Still